welcome back to the RC Dirt Oval podcast, episode 30-something. I've totally forgot what it is tonight. Upper 30s, we'll just call it that. I'm not as cool as Tim Smith. We have not reached episode 100, but we were working towards it. And joined tonight, all the way from Rome, Georgia, none other than Mr. Papa Willie's himself, Scooter Allison. What is up, Scooter?
I wish I could tell you I was excited, but I'm not. I'm down.
You're down?
I'm down, man. I'm down.
Okay.
What? I mean, I'm glad to be on here with you and talking to you, but I'm down.
Man, you just really hurt my feelings then. Okay, so I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be talking to you, but I'm just like, I'm just struggling with the whole racing thing. Have you ever struggled with the racing thing before?
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about like having bad runs. I'm talking about like actually going to the racetrack.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever noticed, my good buddy Tim, he seems to make it out to at least one race a week, if not sometimes 2 to 3 races a week. And I'm lucky to make it to one a month. And so yeah, the struggle is real, man.
Well, see, if I can make it to one a month, I would be happy right now. But
yeah,
I haven't been in actually a competitive race since 2018, I guess. I've been to the racetrack once this year, and that wasn't to race, and it got rained out anyway.
Yeah, and you guys have like new tracks popping up in Georgia, right?
We do. We've got one, like you said, I'm from Rome, which is, we're located about 60 miles north of Atlanta and about 60 miles south of Chattanooga. So we're kind of like right in this little area where we can get to those two metropolises pretty easy.
Right.
So we've got one that's open about 45 minutes from me. I think it's west, I guess. And then we've got a track that's about 45 minutes to an hour north that I've been racing at for the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the track that opened up. It's called Rattlesnake Raceway. We went down there a couple of weeks ago and checked it out. It's a really cool track. It's the guy that I've been racing with at the other track. He opened his own track.
Okay.
Nice little track. It's got a little bit of banking. It's fairly flat though. Nice piece of land. And it's our good Georgia clay. It's the people that's raced on it said it's been a little bit on the dry slick side because they raced during the day.
Okay.
And the sun, the wind kind of dried it out. But he's talking about putting some kind of lights up eventually. And once the lights go up, it's going to be a super fast track.
Yeah.
Just looking at the track from the driver's stand, I had to go up there and check it out. I'm like, man, this is going to be quick.
Right.
But I don't know. I know there's listeners out there that you've got two groups of people. You've got the people that race every week. And I see these guys on Facebook all the time. And they're all the time, we're going to this track now, we're going to this track. And we've got some people that are racing on during the week, like on Tuesday nights and Friday nights and Saturday nights. And I'm like, I just want to go race once this year.
Right.
It's been so busy. My kids play basketball from January to March. And then we had birthday parties and we got a family reunion coming up this weekend. So I was hoping to get stuff out of the way before now, but it looks like I'm still trying to follow myself to the racetrack.
Hey man, I absolutely get it. So I raced the shootout, and then this past weekend was Easter, and we had Easter stuff all weekend. This coming weekend is my anniversary. The weekend after that is my daughter's 1-year birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like 3 weeks out at best if nothing gets planned. So the hooligans have a joke for me. Number one, that all my cars are shelf queens because they don't get ran. And then the other joke is that I get 3 races a year. Well, I raced Motorama and I raced the shootout. So I've only got 1 race left to do this year. So I don't know when this is. I got
1 more to go.
Yeah, I got to stretch it out maybe to like August or something. I don't know.
Sound like me. Oh, only my cars aren't shelf queens. They just sit in a box. I just buy parts and throw in the box, and then they just sit there. I'm sitting here looking at my my new ERC Vindicator right now. It's just I've got the 6.1 over here to my right, and in front of me is the box with the chassis and all these other parts. I've got some arms, and I got the tuning kit from Silky, and there's some gears. I mean, there's stuff in this box. It's like that's my hobby now. It's buying stuff to fit in the box.
Yeah, I get that. I'm kind of the same. I'm like, well, I can't race. I got to buy something. And if nothing else, buy something. That way I feel like I'm still connected with everything.
I think that happens with me too. I'll be amped about going to the racetrack. I'm going to race this weekend, and then something will come up. I'm like, let me look at eBay,
right.
Scrolling through eBay or looking at the Facebook to find what the newest thing is. I was on there this morning and I saw the BBE has the 6.1 aluminum idler gears back in stock.
Okay.
And that's the first thing I saw when I got up this morning and I was scrolling through Facebook. First thing I saw, I'm like, oh, I gotta have. And I'm thinking, you idiot, you don't need those. You've got steel ones already in your collection box. So it's horrible, but I've got the stuff. That's all that matters.
It's so funny because today my thing was servo horns. When my buddy Chad Jones let me borrow their house car, it had this really trick carbon fiber servo horn on it, and I wanted one, so I went and looked at it, and of course he was running a KO, and it's a 23 tooth spline, and all mines are 25 tooth splines. And I looked at MKS, and they make them, but they're way too long, way too tall for what we do. And so then I saw Integy made one, but then they've been discontinued. So I reached out to my good buddy, mad scientist Adam at TQ, and said, "Hey man, can we make something like this?" So I've given him something else to distract him. But yeah,
well, if he makes one, he needs to make three because I need two.
Yeah,
I was looking at several horns today as well. Nobody can see our chat, I guess, but obviously. But I sent you that message. I guess it was about 3:00. I'm like, hey, what is the tooth on a MKS servo?
Right.
And you told me it's 25, which I thought that's what it was. Yeah. And I was looking at the MKS servos horns as well, and the aluminum ones are like super long. And then I didn't look at the carbon fiber ones because I figured they would just be just as long or longer.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, like all my servo horns work perfectly fine. They do exactly what they're supposed to do, but that trick carbon fiber, man, it got me the itch. And also the brand ambassador, he's got his car all blinged out with aluminum anodized red screws, and I'm like, well, I need aluminum, anodized screws, and oh gosh. Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean. It's like with I race for Eric over at Evolution Racing Concepts.
Right.
I've got a super awesome car. We built a car 2 years ago. That is, I love the car. It's got the SC5M front and it's got a Traxxas rear. And everybody laughs at me when I say Traxxas, but that's my gig. I like their stuff.
Right.
Because it's simple, and I'm simple. But we wanted to try something new, so we went this route with it. And about the same time, he had come out with the Diablo for the SC5M crowd, and I love the way the car runs. I love the way it drives and everything.
Right.
But this isn't a production car, and I want to be, full production. If I'm going to be a team driver, I want to drive what he sells.
Right.
So I bit the bullet and got the Vindicator.
Okay.
And I look at the stuff that the guys are posting in our ERC page, and I just want to drive a race car, I look at Silky, and he goes out and he wins, and I look at Tyler Kelly, and they were doing real good with theirs, and everybody that's got one is doing so good, and I'm like, I got to have all the stuff they've got.
Oh yeah.
So it's I guess it's part of the addiction or part of the habit or part of the hobby, I guess. I don't know.
Let's use hobby, not addiction.
Yeah. Well, it's more than a hobby. It's a lifestyle.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So do you have is there an end in sight? Are you going to make it to the track?
Yes,
Okay.
I will make it to the track. I'm not sure when. My goal, let's see, we were talking, of course, we had Easter last weekend, like you said, and then last week was also my son's birthday. So we spent Saturday doing birthday stuff and Easter egg hunts, and then Sunday was spent at church. And then this coming week we have our family reunion, and then the following weekend, make sure I got, is that the 9th? I think it's May 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to the prom.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. My wife works for one of our local high schools.
Okay.
And she's a teacher there. And so somehow or another, she is involved in getting people to chaperone the prom. So we're going to go to the prom together.
Okay.
And, I'm 44 years old.
All right.
I'm going to the prom. And I haven't been to the prom since I was 18 or I guess years old. But I'm going to make a fool out of myself.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to dance. I'm going to embarrass every student there on purpose.
Okay. All right. So did you volunteer for this or were you voluntold?
Voluntold.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that happens a lot. At least in my
She actually told me, she said, if you don't want to go, you can go race.
Oh, wow.
And I knew she'll probably listen to this. That's Strap,
Yeah. Come on. You deep down wanted to go to the prom. That's what it was.
This might be the only chance I ever get to take my wife to the prom. So I'm going to do it.
There you go, man. There you go.
Take one for the racing team.
Yeah. So, hey, I know you follow a lot of stuff on social media. We chat a lot about it. And Live RC does I guess it's their moment with Mike Garrison. Yeah. And they did the article on, I guess, outburst from child racers is the best way to put it. And you've read that article, right?
Yeah. I looked at it. Actually, I read it yesterday, and then I went back and looked at it again today.
Right. So, I mean, I hate to call this kid out because from everything I've heard, he's tried to turn himself around. But the Tater kid, he was the most recent one that really got brought to the forefront in it. I know he got barred from a track and a bunch of other stuff. Maybe it's an off-road thing. I've not seen that in the Northeast on oval, where you have like a hot shoe kid who flips out on a driver's stand or off the driver's stand for that matter. You got anything like that down south?
Really? I don't.
Yeah.
I can't think of a time where I've been to a track in the last few years where there has been a kid that just went, ballistic.
Right.
And I think we kind of, need to point out too, this isn't like a problem where someone is just upset about a run. This is kind of the way I read Mike's article, it's more of like an entitlement type thing.
Yeah.
He deserves more something, attention or whatever.
Right.
Because as well as I do, when we're at the track and we're competitive and things don't go right, we're going to get upset.
Sure.
I remember back about 2004 or 2005, I think it's 2005. I was racing quarter scales back then.
Okay.
And we had a little tiny, it was the Sugar Bowl for the guys who have been in the hobby for a while. The Sugar Bowl was the, the dirt oval establishment in the South for several years in the late 80s and early 90s, and then they concreted it. Well, it had kind of died off, and I think that actually sold the property, but we were still able to use the track, and we've been racing quarter scales on the old Sugar Bowl track. And I had built a brand new body for my car, and it was you only had two options back then. You had a Ford and a Chevrolet. Well, it came out with a Dodge body, and I had to have it. And these things aren't cheap.
Right.
And so I needed a new body anyway. So I bought the Dodge body. I couldn't find out there was only 4 of them made, and the mold broke. So I had this really cool body. And I go down there, and this was before we had all of our fancy 2.4 radios. Back then they were just starting to come out.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I ever saw a Spectrum, the guy next to me was racing using a quarter scale, and I was using one of the old Futaba PCM Magnum brick radios. I mean, they were legit radios, and that's what I had because that's what they told me to get. Because I was having some problems. I had a high-tech radio, and I was having some problems. So they told me to get that.
Okay.
Anyway, back in those days, for our newer listeners, for our younger crowd, we had crystals. We had to match the car and the radio both had a crystal, and that was your frequency.
Yep.
So,
radio impound, buddy. Radio impound.
Yeah. Put the radio in there. Well, and the thing was, I went out to practice, and we had frequency clips. I think those. That's one of my favorite memories of racing is the frequency clip. You go and you grab the one that matches your thing. So I had the clip on my radio. I went up to the driver's stand. I got this 35-pound stock car,
right?
Gasoline stock car. And we crank it up. And I made a lap or two, just kind of, half idling, just to get a couple of laps. And I pulled the trigger to make it go. And when I did, someone hit me with the radio. And this thing's barreling down the front straightaway, probably 30 miles per hour.
Right.
35-pound car. It hits the wall, and it drags itself all the way around the outside wall. The track was a tri-oval, so when it got to the peak in the tri-oval on the back stretch, it stopped itself and just started, running head on into the wall. By this time, I'd ran down there and shut it off, and I was mad. I mean, I was ticked off.
Right.
And I had a little Mitsubishi Montero Sport at the time. That's what I used as a daily driver. And you grabbed it through the passenger side window. There was a handle.
Okay.
And it was also the place where you put the fuel in too. There's a handle and a fuel spout. I grabbed this thing and I take it up. We had to go up a little hill to get to my car. And I didn't know it would fit so well in the back of my Montero, but it did. I slung this thing into my car, and I think I slammed the door. I still had all my stuff out. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking.
Right.
But I was exceptionally mad.
Yeah.
And I remember looking around and nobody was saying anything to me. They knew something was wrong because I'm pretty mild-mannered. I don't usually get out of sorts. But I was so mad because one little radio hit had destroyed my quarter scale car. I went back. It took me about 3 days to get the thing out of the car. When I finally did, it just ruined everything on the right front suspension. I think from the front suspension, there was maybe about 20% that wasn't damaged. The rest of it was just junk.
Yeah.
And I was mad. But I was mad more at the situation, not so much of I expected more. Like some of these guys in Mike's article, it sounds like there's some guys out there that just think they deserve something that they maybe don't deserve. Is that what you read in that?
Yeah. So I know the big thing back when Tater was in the news all the time. He was like literally, and I forget what he was, 10, 11, maybe 12 years old. And, he's literally cussing out corner marshals from the driver's stand. And, I'm of the mindset, if you got a problem with a corner marshal, don't wreck. Just, don't ever get mad at a corner marshal, man. I I might get frustrated. I never let it come out though. I've had to marshal, and had to do dances and get hit in the shins and, all that fun stuff. And, everybody's doing their best. I think though, the one thing that I took from it, and I think some of the comments on Facebook and brought it up too, these kids, they're picking up an example from somebody. And, I don't see it in the kids around here, but I see it in the adults, and it's not pretty.
Oh yeah.
I get we're competing and we're racing, and tempers can flare, but it's either a hobby or it's not. And if a hobby's getting you that bent, it might be time for a new hobby, truthfully.
Oh, yeah. I would agree. I mean, I've seen adults, just like I just mentioned myself, but I've seen adults from the driver's stand, they'll yell and scream at the corner marshals and, turn me over and cuss them out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no place for that.
No.
Because number one, the next cars on the track, typically you'll be marshaling them.
Right.
Are you going to be any faster than the guys that's marshaling you?
Right.
They can only get to you so fast.
Right.
And then you get there's the mention of, have to bring up Mayfield in the radio. I mean, I know it's old news now, but
yeah.
I was listening to him on the No Name podcast, and he said that wasn't the first time that he had thrown a radio. The other time, nobody knew about it. He just went and replaced it.
Right.
And like you said, kids are going to pick that stuff up from somewhere. It's not like they just out of the blue. And I think it's more so they're going to see stuff probably in other areas of their life, and it just translates over to the racetrack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, someone's showing them how you can get away with some things and it'd be okay.
Right.
So what do you think the cure is?
If you throw a fit like that, you're not invited back. I mean, I have a talk with Adam because he's my local track owner a lot, and Adam. So Adam's two boys are big into school sports, and so they live the sports life, and so sportsmanship and all that is something that they take seriously. Plus, he's president of his local volunteer fire department or something like that, and so he has to run the meetings, and when it comes to stuff like that, he's a no nonsense guy, and I'll just go, yeah, if that guy did that at your track, would he be back? Nope. Yeah, I figured the case. And I think that's the best thing, because if you have one guy, come on, man, we've all met that. Look, let's bring this up, because you and I sent the videos back and forth of kicking Mudballs cars on the track. If you allow that behavior to continue at your track, you're going to lose customers. Period. End of sentence. Nobody wants to be around that, and better off to lose the one and maybe 2, 3 because of his cronies or whatever. But nah, hit the road, buddy.
And I thought about that, as I was looking at this article, and while it's an issue with the individual, I think it's another issue with the track in itself, because, well, I'll give an example from the other side of what I do, which is I'm involved in the church,
mm-hmm.
and I'm involved with students primarily.
Right.
And I've been doing this for a long time, 20 something years. And when we first started doing youth ministry back in the day, if we got a new kid to come in, we catered to that kid.
Right.
Because we don't want them to leave.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
We want to keep them there. And so we cater to them. But here's the problem. Let's say this kid comes from, the rougher side of the tracks and doesn't know how to be a church kid. Mm-hmm. So, let's say he lets some non-churchy words out,
Right.
Well, we have an option at that point as leaders to say, hey, we don't do that, or, watch what you say. Or we have the option, which I've failed in the past, of, trying to just ignore it,
mm-hmm.
and cater to the kid. And like you said, what happens is the group that you had there, the core group, begins to leave.
Yep.
And as much as we may not want to believe this, RC racing we're in a competition.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a competition with Xbox, PlayStation. We're in a competition with iRacing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think I see is there's track owners and promoters or whatever. Someone new comes in that doesn't know the old school racing etiquette like I grew up with and like you grew up with. And they don't want that person to leave because that's more income for them when they come and they race 1 or 2 or 3 classes.
Right.
So eventually, if that problem persists, and it will, and other people begin to pick up on it, or other people come with them and they're just as bad, eventually your core group is going to leave. The ones who help get the thing going and rolling.
Yep.
Is going to leave, and I think it goes back to like what you said with Adam, and what my own experience in racing full scale. The racing organization has to do something. They have to step in and say, there's a line,
mm-hmm.
and you can't cross it.
Right.
I know every time with my full scale stuff when I raced it, we get the rule book every year, and it's got the rules for every class.
Right.
Whatever class you're going to run, it's outlined what you can do. But in the front of the book, it gave the track rules and what you could and couldn't get away with.
Mm-hmm.
If you they're not going to allow any alcohol at the track. They're not going to allow any fighting. All this stuff. Stuff that, hey, if you do this, you're out of there. And it was the track's responsibility to hold that up.
Right.
If stuff got out of line. The track I race at Battlefield, the guy who promotes that, he gets up every driver's meeting and he goes over the routine of here's how we're going to lay the races out. We're going to have 2 heats, 3 heats, whatever.
Right.
But then he says, when we're on the track, we're competing against each other. We're competitors.
Right.
But when we turn around, we walk back to the pits, we're friends.
Yep.
So whatever happens on the track, we're going to leave there. And if you don't like that, you can leave. And I think that's kind of a good way to put it.
Yep.
I mean, put it out there to say, hey, this is the way we're going to run this business.
Yep.
Because that's what a track is.
Absolutely.
And then you've got to stand up to it whenever something does happen and there is some kind of altercation or someone does get out of line a little bit and act a fool. You've got to be able to say, okay, look, this is what we said. You've got a choice. Either, change your attitude or pack your stuff up.
That's right.
And, I don't know if that's a problem in some places. I mean, at our track, it's not a problem. It's not a problem at your track.
Right.
But it may be. I mean, it may be that people are saying like, hey, this is another entry, so I don't want to make them mad. So I'm not going to hold tight to the foundations of what we are trying to do here.
Yep.
I don't know.
I've heard it from a lot of places. There's a lot of tracks that let that stuff slide, and I think for the long game, it's going to hurt. And the two biggest gripes that I have heard about what we do from outsiders is I don't have that much time to dedicate. Okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard from a lot of parents about their kids getting involved. There's no way I would subject my kid to getting yelled at like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that right there says it all to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a track here that I'm wanting to go race at, but I'm you hear so many things.
Right.
But I don't know if I'd want to take my children.
Right.
Because of the stuff that I have heard. And that puts a negative light on the track and on the hobby and on everything.
Yep.
Really.
Yep. Well, have we beat that dead horse enough?
Hang on, let me see. I'm gonna look at the article again. I think we did.
Okay. Yeah, so basically if you're at track and you're a kid or you're an adult or you're a senior, don't be a jerk. Problem solved.
I think, I mentioned old school etiquette. I think if we could somehow begin to teach that again,
Yeah.
I don't know how we would do it, but it just seems like there's not a lot of that old school etiquette anymore at the track. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you're 100% right. And I think part of what leads to that, this is completely my uneducated opinion on this. When I started anyway, and we were running brushed and round cells, we were running so slow that if you made dirty contact, it was so visible to the race director, and it was easy for you to get called on it. So you knew, like, okay, if you did somebody dirty, let them get the spot back, because everybody and their brother was going to see it.
Right.
It almost feels like today the tracks and the racing is so fast and it's so chaotic, 8-car mains, 10-car mains, that there is so much contact and everything else that goes on that never gets called because the race director just can't watch it fast enough. I mean, they can't even call wrecks. Most times they're missing them because, I mean, it's just that fast now. It's not an excuse. We still need to teach the etiquette, but I think it was a lot easier back then. That's my opinion.
And I've never really thought about that, the way you just said that. I just know that whenever, me growing up and racing, it was just kind of understood that if you were racing for position and you got together with another car, you waited on them. If you got free first, you waited on them and let them take that spot back.
Right.
I don't see that. That aspect of it. I know with my son, I try to instill that in him, and we've got some young guys at the track that we like to help and all that kind of stuff, and I try to instill that in them.
Mm-hmm.
But you go to another track where you haven't been before, and it's just like, oh well, you got the rough end of the stick. I'm going to keep on going.
Yep.
But there's a lot of that old school. I call it old school, but old school etiquette where, you stuff that was never really spoken out loud. It's just kind of, you just understood it. You just knew.
Yep.
Even talking about corner marshals. Even that after you race, you're going to corner marshal or you're going to get docked a lap.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way we always did it back in our day.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that. If the director would say, hey, come to the track or we're going to mark you down.
Right.
And they would.
Yep.
And now I see a lot of times people try to, ditch out. Well, they got plenty over there. There's 5 people there. They can take care of it. I'm going to work on my car.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not how it works.
Nah, man. And I can tell you right now, my friends, I call them on it. And there's a friend that's going to be listening, and he knows who he is because I call him every time. I said, where are you going, man? Oh, I got to go. No, you're supposed to be marshaling. You get out here with me. Come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's changed a lot.
And here's something that's kind of neat. I've heard some tracks that are actually hiring corner marshals.
I do not like that. Do not like.
You like that?
I do not. No.
You don't like that?
No,
well,
sir.
Here's what I've heard, and this is supposedly, and I haven't got a chance to go to one yet. The score races that we have down here in the South.
Yes.
They've got they have 2 turn marshals that marshal every race, and they're not affiliated with anyone at the track, as far as I know. Now it may be someone's brother, cousin, son. I don't know, but they marshal every race.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm old school. I like, hey, put your car down, come back to corner.
Right.
Or in the event you have back-to-back races or you're up next or whatever, or you're working on your son's car, just get someone to fill your spot.
Yep.
I've sent my son before when his car was tore up and my car was tore up. Hey, Jack, go corner marshal for me while I do this real quick and let them know that you're doing it for me.
Right.
And that's not been a problem. But,
right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm old school. I like, hey, put your car down, go corner marshal, 4 minutes, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's just easy to me.
I raced one race or two races where they had paid corner marshals, and the problem that I had was they were late teens. You know, they were doing it for next to nothing. Probably they weren't really racers, so the time for them to marshal would have been double probably what a racer would have marshaled it in, because I mean they were apprehensive to get in the track, and you know, at least I know when I'm marshaling, I'm listening for certain things. I'm watching what I know to be the problem area of the track, and I'm also watching what I know to be the problem drivers, so that I can, you know, almost try to anticipate it. Just because that's how I would want to be marshaled. You know, right. I wouldn't want somebody out there, you know, watching the butterflies. So, and that was my experience. They were just kind of watching the butterflies or checking their phone, or, you know, good concept, but yeah, not a fan.
Yeah, and usually at the tracks that I race at, we corner from the outside.
Okay.
You know, some tracks I've seen start cornering from the inside, but one thing I learned back when I was a kid too is when you dart across the track, and you're waiting to come back across, I always dug down.
Right.
You know, I always kind of crouched down, and people probably look at me like I'm an idiot nowadays.
Right.
But man, it makes such a difference when you're trying to go around a corner and there's a man standing there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Do y'all corner from the inside or outside of y'all's tracks?
We have both.
Really?
Yeah, we have both. And I think the majority of our tracks here are standing on the infield. I do like the tracks that you either sit or you kneel if you're in the infield, because that is, I mean, it creates a blind spot no matter how you cut it. There will be a blind spot in those corners. It's small, but yeah. I think that's pretty much everywhere in the Northeast. You get one on the out, one on the in, each corner.
Yeah.
Well,
as long as they're down, where I can see around them, I don't care.
Right.
But, you know, that's the big thing with me. I just got to see past you.
Right. All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I had a question thrown at me, and I don't know if it was through the podcast page or if it was my personal page. Either way, they said that as we have guests on, they would like to hear from some of the like elite pro drivers. We don't really have pro drivers, but you know what I mean. About what they do with like radio settings and speed controller settings and all these things. And I just wanted to touch on that with you real quick. I'll give you where I'm at, and but I know I talked with you. I guess it was last year, and hopefully you're okay with revealing this secret you were doing. But you were setting yours up to have a button for drag brake on the fly. I know Tekin has just come out with that on their ESCs this year. So how elaborate do you get with radio settings and speed controller settings and all that?
Man, with radio, I'm just as basic as it comes.
Okay.
Somebody talked me into buying a Grotner radio. And I love it. It's awesome. It's just I'll never ever use everything that it offers for me to use.
Right.
But I'm just basic. You know, I set my trims. I set my make sure that the servo is not going to bind. You know, I like for it to throw the same both sides.
Okay.
As long as the servo is not to bind. I don't really mess. I set my throttle for wide open on the radio, and then I adjust on the speed control how much power I want to have.
Okay.
Because for me, for what we do now, if we were racing on off-road or something, it might be a different story. But for me, I just like having the control. I like to have as much as I can get off the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I don't need that much, I don't use that much.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, they like to turn it down so they've only got 80% of their usable, what they've got through their radio. I just keep mine at whatever the setting is, 100 or 150 or whatever the ambiguous setting is on whatever particular radio. And then I'll do the same thing with the speed control. I just keep it 100%, and then I just control through my throttle. Now, I say that, and I also don't run a big motor either.
Right.
I run a small. In our open classes, I generally run a smaller KV motor,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of people ask me what I'm running, and I tell them, and they don't believe me.
Right.
Just to be honest, they don't believe me.
Right.
Are you sure? I'm like, yeah. I'll show it to them. It's just, it's 3,800 KV motor.
Right.
Now I've got a 4,300 and I've got a 5,100, and I'm going to put them to use.
Right.
But to me, I just adjust on the radio. On the speed control if I want to take anything out. But usually I keep everything 100%.
Right. Right.
With the exception of drag brake, and you kind of touched on that. That setting, being able to adjust drag brake on the fly makes a huge difference. At least for me when
mm-hmm.
I'm racing.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from the full scale world, we had a crank in our cockpit, and we could adjust our brake bias front to rear.
Right.
So if we were racing on a really, really heavy track where I could, kind of sling the car around a little bit, I used more rear brake.
Right.
If we were on a very slick track, I'd turn in and take brake from the rear and have more front brake.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the drag brake, in my opinion, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you're not working with front brake, but you're working with how much rear brake you can use.
Right. Right.
So the way I've got my radio set up, I've got a little, it's a switch right next to my index finger on my right hand, and going down the back straightaway or front straightaway, whatever, I can just kind of click it a few times, and I've got it set up to go 10% increments.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll go, I started at, let's say, I don't know, maybe 50%, not 50% drag brake. That's not right. Say 10% drag brake, and I can go, up or down a little bit,
mm-hmm.
depending on track conditions. And it makes a difference for me.
Right.
Some people it might not work well for.
Yeah.
But for me, that was a big tuning tool for me in the race car, in a full scale car. So it makes, it's something I can work with as I'm racing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, I mean, like I said, I know Tekin has rolled it out on their latest, all the Gen 3 stuff is coming with that ability. I mean, it's something that's intriguing to me. But I'll say this. I know some really fast guys that run no drag brake at all.
Oh yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the point I'm getting to. There is no right or wrong. I know some guys that are, they'll set their right side endpoint on their steering, at 80% and their left at 100, and then they'll cut their dual rate down to like 75%, and then they set a little expo, and I mean every little setting that's available, they're tweaking it and playing with it. And I know other guys that are just like, no, I just want the car wide open, like give me it all. And I think I said it on here. I was talking with I'm just exploring other radio options this year. And so I was talking to Dustin Malicote about the KO stuff. And I was like, man, does it got a button you can set on the side to adjust throttle endpoint? And he's like, yeah, it's called your finger. I was like, oh, okay, man, I get it. That's how you run. I like my crutches. But saying all that, I have the past 2 races, I've gone more of the wide open approach and letting my hands do all the work. And it's kind of my goal for this year is to get to the point I can do everything just as wide open and feel super comfortable with it and let it all be in my hands. I don't know if it's any better that way, but it's kind of my goal. Because I figure if I can do it like that, then I can throw in some of the settings and it's just, the cherry on top.
Yeah. I've won the local track we had here in Rome. I won a lot of races running half throttle because, like I said, all these other guys will be running these huge motors, and they kind of have that same mentality. I'm going to give it as much as it can take. And I got to where I was just, I drove the car where it was comfortable.
Right.
And if I needed more speed, I had it.
Right.
To get past someone or get past an accident, I could kind of, give a little more to get past that. But then I'd go back to about half throttle, maybe 3/4 throttle.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody would like, why is your car so fast? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm going to play stupid. But, that was the truth. I mean, the more throttle input you give, especially on a slicker track, the more wheel spin you're going to get and the less control you have.
Right.
And you said on the last podcast how you went down on your motor at the Savage Shootout.
Yeah.
And learned a lot just by having more car control with less motor.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I just know like Outlaw Sprint. I hear, Midwest guys. Yeah, I was running a 6.5 with boost. I was running a 5.5 with boost. And then I talked with some other ones and they're like, yeah, I was on an 8.5, in Blinky and had plenty. And I'm like, that's a big difference. It's a big difference.
It really is. And it may come down to the radio. They've got their throttle turned down on the radio.
Right.
But, they're not telling you that. They're running a 6.5 or a 5.5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just like stuff simple, just, set it up and let me run it. I don't have the speed controls I use don't even offer the boost.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what speed controllers do you run?
Man, if I told you, you'd laugh at me.
No, I'm not going to laugh at you.
I run Castle stuff.
Okay. Hey, man.
Now, that doesn't mean I'm always going to run Castle unless the Castle people contact me and say, hey, we'd like to talk to you or something. But I've run Castle for years now, and I've never had a problem with them. A lot of people say they don't like them, and I know a lot of people move on from them because they say the Hobby Wings, the Tekins are better. And
right.
I got no problem with that. I've got a brand new Hobby Wing in my other collection box, just sitting there. I think I'm going to put in the Vindicator, actually.
Oh, there you go.
But there's just something about the Castle. I guess it's the user interface with the computer, and they've got the Wi-Fi box now. I don't have one of those. I need to get one for my collection. That it's just simple for me, and there's no boost. There's nothing like that. I mean, you can adjust some parameters on it. And you can pull the data off of it, but
right.
It's just a simple, for a 4-pole motor, it's just a simple ESC to use. And their latest equipment has the special little cable, I can't remember what it's called now, which gives you the option to adjust things on the fly.
Okay.
You get to choose one. I think there's maybe 5 options, but you choose one. You can't use them all. You can adjust your torque. You can adjust your max speed. You can adjust drag brake. There's a few others, but to me, just having that extra option of being able to adjust on the fly makes up for not having the boost or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm running an Outlaw Sprint or a modified late model 10 scale, then that's not going to fly because you got to have something different.
Right. Right.
But for my short course stuff, I like it.
Okay. Hey, man, whatever works.
That's right.
I can.
That's right. Like you said a minute ago, there's not a one right way.
No, there's not. And people look for that silver bullet, but it really doesn't exist. It's track time,
and just knowing your equipment.
Yep.
I had some guys ask me one time. They said, what's your secret? And I don't have a secret. Well, what's your setup? And I scratch it out. Here it is. I tell them what my setup is. And I don't know how much of that setup they use. They might use all of it or just try some of it, but they come back like, you didn't do something's not right. And I'm like, well, do you know your car?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? I'm like, well, I mean, everything on there's it's there for a reason, and it's designed for a reason. And you're looking. I'd put my car next to his car, and I'd say, hey, see where your shock is here, how it's leaned. My shock's different from that. And I'm not saying that's what's the secret, or not the secret, but what's getting my car around better. But it's not just throwing on the track. You got to know your stuff.
Absolutely.
But in saying that, this might be of interest. When you're setting your car up, how do you go about that? Do you set it up with precision, or do you just like, it looks good?
Oh gosh. If you'd asked me that question a year ago, you would have got everything is measured and precise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my last 2 cars have just been built, and I built it and I said, yeah, that looks about right. And the only thing I did was I did check ride height just to make sure it was in ballpark.
Mm.
And it was really close, and threw it down on the track and was happy with it. So yeah, I'm definitely shifting in that to where I'll get it to what it looks like it should be by eye, and then it's going to be just by feel after that. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest factor in all of that, like with sharing setups with people and everything, here's the bad part about it. If you are wanting someone else's setup, and there's nothing wrong with that, I'm not trying to put it down or belittle it, but if you're wanting somebody else's setup, like to the T, chances are you are not at a point in your racing to be able to evaluate your driving style and compare it to the driving style of the person that's giving it to you, so you can even see if you guys drive even similar.
Right.
Because that is, I've taken Tim's car and Tim's taken my car, and we would each make like 5 to 10 laps and be like, here, please take it back. Like, how are you even getting around a track with that? And it's because our driving styles are just radically different. Mm-hmm. And, I even talked to you about this. It was when Tebow was on the No Name podcast. He was talking about he got a setup from somebody for, I think it was his associated stuff when he won the Reedy race, and he was talking about how he knew this person's driving style was very similar to his, and I'm like, okay, Tebow's at a place where he knows his style and he can evaluate somebody else's style and take that and run with it. And he's so aware of everything the car is doing at any point in time on a track that he can, make the adjustments as needed.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I just, people tend to sometimes take a little thing I say and make it a big thing. I just want to be clear. Sharing setups is a good thing. Please don't take it that I'm against them. Get setups. I've got them. I still ask questions of people, but don't ever fall under the conception that you're going to get a setup from somebody, throw it in your car, and it's going to fix your problems.
Right.
So that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a lot like you now. I don't write anything down.
Right.
And I eyeball most everything.
Mm-hmm.
As far as ride heights go, I'll slide my fingers under the car and see if it touches or not, or I kind of have a feeling, okay, right, that feels good.
Right.
But I don't, I set my cars up totally different than most people do anyway.
Right.
I think that's just a a result of not being in a big hub of dirt oval. When we got it going here in Georgia a couple of years ago, it was like we were just getting our cars to work right, and it worked good for me. And some other people picked up on that, the way I set mine up, and it worked well for them. But I don't write anything down. If the car works really good, I'm talking about really good, I might get my camber gauge out, or I might check the toe.
Yeah.
And I know some people are cringing right now, like, oh, you can't do that. But I'm like, hey, I kind of have an eye for what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put it on the track, and I'm not going to let my setup sheet dictate how my car runs on the track.
Right.
I'm going to drive the car. I'm like, oh, okay, it needs this. Or I'm going to adjust it here. And then that just comes with, I guess, time and experience and more time.
Yep.
And that goes back to what you said about, sharing setups. And I'm all for it. Somebody wants to come over and ask me what I'm running, I'll answer any questions anybody asks me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't just offer free information just to throw it out there, because I don't want to be that guy
right.
that tells you how to do your job.
Right.
But if you come over and say, hey, how much camber are you running, or what's your toe setting, or what's your shock oil, or I'll give them everything they ask me for. You can hold my car, you can pick it up, you can look at it, or whatever. Some of the questions I'm going to have an answer for, I'll get the gauge out, we'll check it. But if someone doesn't ask me a specific question, that I don't answer specific answers.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
But I don't weigh the thing. I've got a set of scales, and when I do weigh it, it's just to get a total weight.
Right.
Because I learned a long time ago, the scales, while they don't lie, what you put them on may not tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your scale set up on a 6-foot table, and if the table's not level, your scales aren't going to tell you what you need to know. Or if someone comes and leans on the table, it's going to throw your scales off. If you don't turn your car on so that your wheels are set the way they're supposed to be and they're locked in the position, because when you turn your front wheels, it throws off your crossway.
Right.
So anybody asks me how to scale them, I said, well, this is how you do it. But I don't really do that.
Yeah.
I've got an X-Acto knife, and I'll check the wedge. But that's about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm at a place now where it's like, I know what I want the car to feel like. I know how I want the car to respond. I know what a basic setup's going to be. Sometimes, I still get perplexed about roll centers, and I will reach out to some people about some things like that. But
no.
I know what I want it to do, and I know most of the adjustments to get it there. And, for me, that's good. If I get to the place where if I get to the place where my driving ability surpasses my setup ability, then perhaps I will, start looking at going into much greater detail and scaling and all that good stuff. But yeah,
scales are good. I mean, if you use them religiously,
right,
and you've got a dedicated place where you put them every time you set the car up, and that place, is stationary, it doesn't move, the scales can tell you a lot.
Right.
If you do a total rebuild and the car is not working like you want it to, the scales can tell you, where your mess up is.
Mm-hmm.
They're good for that. But for me, I mean, I can never get them to repeat because I never use them in the same place.
Right.
And I'm OCD enough that if the numbers weren't exact, it really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I can stress over this, or I can just go drive my race car.
Right.
And so I decided to go drive my race car.
Right.
You did touch on roll centers. Roll centers, I'm intrigued with roll centers and center of gravity and all that stuff. And I'm continuously researching that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I want to learn that. I want to know what's going to make the car different.
Yep.
And handle different. I was watching YouTube of the Dale Jr. download on YouTube.
Okay.
It was, he has a podcast, and I don't know how long the actual podcast is, but they'll take snippets, like a 10-minute snippet or whatever,
right,
and throw it up on YouTube. And he was talking to Steve Park, who drove for his dad in what was the Bush series back in the 90s, and then he drove for DEI whenever DEI started. And something that was really unique was, Steve Clark came from up there where you guys are.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe Maine or somewhere.
Okay.
He came down south, and he was a car builder by kind of one of his hobbies. His racing hobbies was to build the cars and race the cars, and he talked Dale into building a short track car, but it was totally different than any of their other stuff. I'm rambling, I guess, but
You're good.
he wanted a drop snout on the chassis. He wanted to lower the pivot points. And they were talking about, why that made that car so much better, because he'd won a bunch of races with it, and Dale Jr. drove it in the Busch Series and won a bunch of races. And stuff like that. Just, I'm like a sponge. I want to know why that stuff works.
Right.
If you raise the roll center, if you lower the roll center, if you move all that angle stuff, I really, really like that.
Oh yeah.
But as far as just the basic setup, that's why I say, somebody comes and says, "Hey, what's your setup?" I tell them, because I know the cars are going to be different.
Right.
Somewhere, my car, I might have a camber link in a different spot.
Mm-hmm.
And, and if they don't understand that's going to make a difference, then my setup's not going to help them anyway.
Right. Right.
I'm not trying to sound like, whatever. But I think that comes with the learning and the testing and the learning and the trying and all that kind of good stuff that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me.
I get it, man. I'm much the same. All right. Well, look, it's almost 11 o'clock here, and it's been a long day. And I don't know about you down south, but right now our allergies are outrageous here. It's literally pollen on the wind. It's so bad right now. And I got home, cut my grass and all that. So I'm like swelled up. And anyway, all that to say, man, it's been a lot of fun. And I look forward to over the racing season, getting you back on and get some guests on and see what kind of stuff we can get into. And before we go, though, is there anybody you need to thank?
Well, yeah, let me. I always have to thank Eric at Evolution Racing Concepts.
Yep.
He puts out a great product. If you get anything from him, the newest generation of stuff, which is his, let me get this right, the B6.1 Sprint, or the 1/10 late model, which is called the One, or the short course, the SC 6.1 base short course, the Vindicator. All his stuff is coming in carbon fiber now, which is just it's awesome.
Right.
He used the G10 for a while, and he'll still do a G10 occasionally on a customer request, as far as I know. But you pay a little more, but man, it's a good product, and I can't wait to get this Vindicator put together. And I've also got the One sitting here with me as well, and it is in the same condition as the Vindicator. But eventually these will go onto the racetrack. I'm not sure when. So I got to thank Eric. I got to thank my buddy Kyle over at Team Tactical RC.
Oh yeah.
He does some great 3D printing stuff. I think you got some of his stuff.
Oh yeah.
Is that right?
Yep. A lot of the hooligans are picking up stuff from him.
Yeah. The cool thing about Kyle is, he's a racer, and he knows what we need. But also, I've been able to kind of collaborate with him a little bit on a few things. The tire prep holder thing, he's got that on there. It's actually listed as a Papa Willie's tire prep holder.
Right.
And also, you can put your tools in it as well. That's a really cool thing. But he's not just doing printed stuff anymore. He's also got some other stuff that he sells. He sells Hobby Wing, MIP, DE. I think he sells AKA. But just so the listeners know, between now and the end of the month, you can get 20% off any of that stuff if you use code Happy Birthday.
There you go.
Let's see, today's the 23rd. His birthday is 2 days from now. And so this month he's been running a special 20% off. Use that code, all one word. So that's Team Tactical. Shark RC Bodies. Paul Peterson is just one of the most interesting people I think I know. Because me and him we're short course late model people. And we kind of mesh really well, and it's been really fun working with him. He's a super. Let's see, DE's helped me this year.
Right.
Looking forward to using their products, their wheels, their tires, the stuff they offer. Chris Vieira, everybody knows him. He's a little on the edge, but we all know a taco will calm him down.
Right.
Let me think. MKS servos, man.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a collection of those as well. They're sitting in the box, waiting to go into the Vindicator.
Oh, wow.
So I can't wait to use that. TQ Bodies, doing the modified stuff for me.
Yep.
And I think Tom and Adam are mad at me.
Oh.
Because, well, I've had this body for about 6 months now that they sent me. And they quit asking me for pictures of it because I'm like, dude, I'll get it.
Right.
So I had planned on using it on a different car, but I think it's going to go on the Vindicator.
Okay.
We all know where that project is right now.
Yeah.
Let me think. Am I missing anyone? I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't think I am.
Okay.
I thank Papa Willie's, but
Yeah.
not really thank the company. I thank the customers for that.
Yeah.
I've got the best customers in the RC community, bar none.
Okay. There you go. Very cool. All right. Well, as always, huge shout out to GFRP 57 Designs. All those awesome people over there, especially the brand ambassador. TQ Bodies and Wraps, Adam and Tom, all your body wrap chassis accessory needs. I think they need to come up with a new name. TQ Bodies and Wraps, TQ RC products. I don't know, something.
TQ stuff.
TQ mosquitoes. Yeah. Nah, seriously, they're great guys. Proline, Tekin, MKS, Papa Willie's. I got to put a body down here in the basement so I can see all the stickers.
I'm the same boat.
Yeah, I think that's close enough. I got the big ones anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. Going to really try to at least do 2 or 3 episodes a month now through the summer. So I don't have anything locked in for next week, but got some things in the works. So we will see what happens. Stay tuned. We shall be churning out content when we have content. Not just going to put stuff out for the sake of putting stuff out. And if for some strange reason you happen to not listen to last week, but are a regular listener, don't be alarmed. Tim is still around, and Tim will be joining us again in the weeks to come at times, and then other people. And you know what? Just go back and listen to last week's. I explain it all there, and I'm too tired to go through it now. So, last call, Scooter. What do you got, buddy? Anything?
Only thing I got is y'all made fun of my accent last episode. And so you said you were neutral because you were, not officially Northern or Southern.
Right.
But Tim is officially Northern, and I'm officially Southern.
Yeah.
And so the South will rise again.
Oh my gosh! No.
And I know that there was a deal with Shane last year, but I am publicly challenging Tim to a rap battle.
Oh, ooh.
Yes, a rap battle. Okay. I'm 44 years old. I don't have anything to lose.
Okay.
So Tim, if you're out there listening, I'm gonna challenge you, and we're gonna do the like old school wrestling promos.
Nice.
We need to do that to kind of amp it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this already. I'm enjoying this already. This is going to be good.
I like Tim. Tim is a good guy. I like him a lot.
Tim is the man. Tim is the man. Cool, man. All right. Well, guys, as always, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/RC Dirt Oval. We're on most of your major podcast providers. So feel free to share us and tell people about us and like us, review us, rate us, whatever you feel like doing. And until next time, that's a wrap.